Hi everyone, Nigel with you, Nigel's Modelling Bench, back with these beginner builds or beginner tips, and this is part 2 now of the wood graining effects. To be honest with you, I'm not really over the moon with part 1, but I put it out there anyway. It's very it's not hit and miss. It's very it's a very special subject that there is no real, there is an accurate colour for German grey. There is an accurate tire black. There is an accurate colour for, mid-war American naval aircraft. But with wood, it could be anything. It could be practically white. It could be practically black. And then it could be stained. It could be stained with oil. It could be stained with stain. It could be stained from getting wet all the time. It's so difficult. Now, as you can see here, this looks very much like a sheet of sort of normal plywood that you would go and buy, sort of pretty much untreated, fairly uninteresting, sort of just grain in it. This one here looks more like a sort of piece of hardwood, and this one here, this again is like a piece of ply, but it's slightly darker, so like maybe a better quality ply, and we can see that blotchiness coming through that I put in. This one here, not really happy with it at all. It doesn't really look much like anything, but when you look at it close up, it does have a grain to it, but it's kind of, I don't know, I think it's because it's shiny, it just doesn't look right. But the one thing I do want to show you here, this is 24 hours now since I did this, and I'm going to show you something that will probably blow your mind if you're new to the hobby. You can still work with it. Okay, this is 24 hours later, and as you can see, I can still play with the grain. I can come along, that's my bit of sponge that I used, I can wipe this down here, I can change everything. It's absolutely amazing. See, do the same on here, do the same on here. I basically remove all the paint, I can still do whatever I want with it, and you just play with it. And if you, as I say, if you don't like it, you come back to it the next day and you think, oh, I had too many beers last night and I'm not sure that I like what I've done. Just get a bit of thinners on a rag and just wipe it off and start again. The paint underneath should remain pretty unaffected. As long as you've cleaned the plastic or primered it with a good quality primer, the paint underneath should be unaffected. So as you can see, we can still mess around with it, we can still move it around and stuff like that. Okay, so there we are. So there's the various effects, and I'm sort of quite happy with this one. I'm not so happy with this one, but, and as I said, I've just realised as well I've forgotten to get the moulded piece out again off the bow first. But what I'm going to do in this video is, first of all, I'm going to show you how we can change the tone and make the wood look completely different. And also, and then we're going to move on to doing planking like on a ship deck, and I've got a sample piece here to play around with, and it's 72nd scale, so it's nice and large so you can see what I'm doing. You do the same with 350th scale, but it's going to be very difficult for you to see it. So let me go and get my piece of plastic that I forgot to get out of the box, and then we'll go on and we'll start doing some toning. As you can see, it's still very messy, so I'm going to get rid of this nice grey mat and we'll go back to my dirty old green one, and we'll go from there. Okay, so for changing the tonality of the wood, we're going to use some clear paints, and what I'm going to use for this is Tamiya X26, which is a clear orange. I'm going to use X24, which is a clear yellow, and believe it or not, I'm going to use X19, which is a smoke colour. It's like a clear grey colour. So we'll start off with the orange, and what I'm going to basically do, I'm going to get some Mr. Colour Rapid Thinner, purely because it dries fast. That's the only reason I'm using this. I would probably use levelling thinner, to be honest with you. And I'm going to put a drop of that thinner in there. And as you can see, I've put quite a lot of thinner in there because it's going to be very thin, this paint. I'm going to come along with a brush. Where is a brush? Here's one. And I'm just going to grab some of this paint out of here. Put that in there, and that is literally one brush full in a drop of thinners. So it's extremely thin. And then, as always, we'll put a lid back on our paint so we don't spill anything. It's worth remembering as well with these guys, if you use these, try and keep the top edge of the rim clean, like I haven't done there, because this stuff is like bloody glue. It really does get really sticky when it dries, so you will find that the lid will kind of weld itself onto the glass, so keep the top clean. So we're just going to do a little test spray there, you can see there. So you can see there's some rubbish coming out of the lid there. So what we'll do is we'll just do the upper half of each one, and we'll just give it a bit of a tone change. I won't do the whole half. You can see I'm just spraying this on, just very lightly, and you will see it change the tone of the wood. In fact, I've run out already. I'm going to have to put some more in there, but I'll get the airbrush filled up and then I'll come back when I'm ready to spray some more. Okay, I've got some more in the airbrush now. It's about 80% thinners. So I think I had it a little bit too thin the first lot actually. We can just spray this on here, and as you can see, it changes the colour of the wood. If I go heavier here, and go slightly lower to here, and then very light here, you can see the difference in tone. Do the same on this one. Go heavier there, a bit lighter here. You can see how it's changing. If I go really heavy, now you can see how it's really making the wood now look very sort of varnished, like you would see, you know, in a boat or something like that, where it would be you know, very well sealed, whereas on an old shed door it would never be anything like that. So you can see on there we've got the tonality changing. You can see that this one has become much sort of brighter, more red. This one has become more like a varnished piece of marine ply, and this has just brought the colour out. Okay, so you know, World War I aircraft interior, if you're going to do this sort of this plywood, you know, these two here are the way to go. So if we use the yellow, notice I'm not bothering cleaning the airbrush. There's no need to clean the airbrush whatsoever in between these. So I'll get my thinners and I'll put some more thinners in again. And a lot of people talk about airbrushing like a science, like an art, and you have to have this precise mix of paint and all that. Don't believe it, it's not true. There are so many people that get so tied up in knots about airbrush related subjects. It's just not, it's just, all it is, it's a form of passing air over a needle and putting paint on your model. That's all it is. You know, some people go absolutely up the wall when they see me mixing paint, you know, in the airbrush cup. They always mix in a plastic cup, you know, and then they pour it in the airbrush, and then they throw their plastic cup away. They pick their paint up with a pipette, they put it into a plastic cup, and then after they've mixed it, they throw the pipette and the plastic cup in the bin. That's really good for the planet, isn't it, eh? That's just what we need. So, you know, it's daft. So this is the yellow. All right, now yellow I'm going to do here. So we can put the yellow on here, and you will see that you get a change in tone, but it's completely different to the orange. Do the same here. Put it on quite heavy because it's so thin. We'll do the same here. Okay. And hopefully on that one you've seen exactly what it's done. That's really done what I wanted it to do. Exactly what I wanted it to do. Look how the grain has come out. Look how that has brought the grain out in that. Look at either side of it, and then look at where the yellow is. You can see the wood grain has really popped. Yeah, not a lot of difference on this one because it's very yellow anyway. This one, again, the wood grain is sort of popped out. This one here, you know, really nice. So that could be what you're looking for now on the inside of your World War I aircraft. Yeah. So as you can see, we've got a total tonal change, and then for the final one, we'll do our grey, our smoke. I always put the lid back on things because you see people put the lid, they'll just take the lid off of something and then they'll use it, they pop the lid back on like that, and then you come along and pick it up, and if it's just catching the threads, it'll go everywhere. So I was going to pour that in then, what am I thinking of? So we'll just clean the brush off quickly, into the paint, 1, 2, there we go. 2 big brushfuls, all stirred up. I'll put the lid back on. I'm not going to bother wiping the top because you'll be all day watching me wipe lids. And you can see here it's very, very thin. So we'll do the same on here now. And you can see now how this is really going to affect the look. Okay, now there's hardly anything on there, but you can see the change in the look of the wood. Not much on this one again, not a lot on this one. You can see a difference on that one. If I go heavier on this one and see what happens. You can see how it's darkening it up. It's making the grain come out. It's making the wood darker, so really good for a sort of bleached deck or something of a ship. So I'm going to get this again. I'm just going to put the fan on a sec, guys, because I can smell the paint. I can smell the thinner, should I say. I'm just going to put some in here again. There we go, just 1 brushful in there, that should do us. And I want to see if I can make a difference on that piece of truck bed that I've got here. Oh, come on. Right. So I'm going to see here, just check, yeah. See if I can darken this wood up. It's also a clear acrylic paint, so it's also acting as a sealer. But you can see there, when you look at this side compared to that side, see how it's kind of running into all the areas and giving us that aged look. Yeah. What I'll do is just get rid of that in there. I got the sticky hairbrush. And I'm going to do a bit of orange. Too much. Get the lids back on. Get the lid back on here. And then check the flow. What you can see here, I can put some orange on here. I can do it in stripes. Try and sort of pick out individual flanks. I could go over where the grey is. So you can see on there now, the orange, you can see there's orange here, there's orange down the end, there's orange here, and there's orange there. You can see how it's, so instead of just being like a monotone, it's all different colours now. And after I finished filming yesterday, I went on and put some brown oil on there. You can see I can still rub that about. I can still grab a cotton bud and rub it around and play with it. Yeah, fantastic way of achieving a wood grain look. So there we are. So that's the plastic moulded wood, and I think you can say that looks pretty darn good. You can go over the top, go really over the top and make it too bright, like that. You can see it's really sort of popped like new wood now. So there we are. I'm going to sort of match it up and make it all look about the same. There we are. And if you do go over the top, put some grey on there, it will bring it back down. So there we go, guys. Right. Got a little bit of orange left in here. Just do some heavy orange there. Really heavy. So heavy that it's puddled, look. what we're going to do is wipe that off, and you can see the oils coming off with it. Right, so there we go, there's your effects once more. And I think for my money, I think this is my favourite. We've got the orange, the yellow and the grey on there. So that was basically the XF55 and then the brown oil, nothing else. Just move it around with a cotton bud. You can see we've got these sort of marks which sort of add to the effect like you see on wood. Yeah. And as I say, these samples are way too big. I should have kept it to sort of pieces of plastic this sort of size, and then you get a much nicer effect because it's all tidy and it's running off the edge and everything rather than all just being all tatty around the sides. So if I do another video like this, I'll know that. It's something I've learned. So what we're going to do now is have a look at doing some ship decking, some planking. And what I've got here is the 1/72 scale Scharnhorst turret base. I'm going to wash my hands before we do this. What I've done, I've given it a prime of the wonderful MRP grey primer. You can see it's absolutely beautiful, really lovely finish. MRP primers are amazing. And then I've gone over with the XF55, which is the tan, and then I've gone some XF57, which is the buff colour, and just as you can see, just sort of gone over it, just a random sort of blotchy pattern, just to add a bit of variation. And what I'm going to do is, using oils, cotton buds and a paintbrush, we're going to make this look like wood and have variation going on. Now, I've done this before on the Bismarck, and I think I used watercolours, which is okay, but it can be very tedious. The other way you can do this, and I've shown this before, is use masking tape and mask off. So you spray one colour, and then you mask loads of it up, and you spray one colour, and then you take some of that masking away and spray another colour, and just basically you end up with all the variations in the colour of wood. But here I'm going to do this with oils because it's easier and it's quicker and it's a lot less fuss. So I'm going to get myself sorted. I'm going to use the oil paints we used yesterday. So the burnt umber and the yellow ochre, I'm going to use those. We're going to mix them up in here. We're going to make some really, really thin oil washes. I'm going to brush them on and then take them off and play with them and stuff. So we don't need any of these acrylic products. We're going to get rid of that cloth because we don't want to go damaging our enamels or anything. So what we're going to do is just get ourselves cleaned up, and then we'll come back and get on with this. Alright, so I've got my little tray here. I've got my odorless thinners, odorless mineral spirit. I got this from Amazon. And what I'm going to do, I've got a pipette here which is dedicated to oils. Try not to mix up. I never use the same brush with oils as I use with acrylics or anything. The fear is, if I came along with this brush that I've just used to put thinners or mix thinners in my airbrush, if there is residual chemical in here, it may attack that paint when I start brushing it on. So you need to be very, very careful and don't mix. And certainly if you're using flory washes, don't ever mix up your brushes, because you can kill your flory wash in an instant. We're just going to put a drop of odorless thinners in here. In fact, I'm going to put another little drop, a third drop in here. Right, and that should be enough to keep us going. I'm going to get another piece of paper towel, because again, we don't want cross-contamination with the, the hot sort of rapid thinners and the enamel. It'll just destroy it. You saw what happened there when I wiped that paint away. That's the sort of thing you're looking at. You're going to destroy everything. So we've got 3 lots there. So I've got the same brush that I used yesterday for putting the brown oil on, and I can see that it's still got some brown oil in it, so that's probably going to be enough in that brush to give us the wash we already want. So there we go, we've got that one. Then I'm going to get some of this one, the yellow ochre. I'm just going to get a little tiny bit on the end of this brush, just like so. Mix that in there. and you can see how densely pigmented this oil paint is. You know, that was literally a tiny drop on the end of that brush, and you can see we've got the colour there already, but the paint is very, very thin. So what I'll do, on camera, I'll do this bit up here because it's easy for you to see and we're not working into corners and stuff. So all I'm going to do is just brush this on here, all over. Okay, now we could do this with oils the same as we did on the other stuff, but this is much faster because you're not having to wait for the oil paint to dry out and everything. You can just come straight in and work with it. Okay, so that's that on there. Now I can come in with a small brush and start individually picking out planks like so. And you can see that we can remove the stain from the oil, from individual planks. Now I think I need to let this dry a bit more, or try and do is speed things up. I think that's just removing all of it, isn't it? I mean, there's another effect, just found completely by mistake. Roll a cotton bud over the wash. You can see you get this uneven, blotchy look, but it may not be the look you want. Go away hair, that hair does not want to go away. So I'm going to brush some more on here. And I'm going to attempt to dry it out with the airbrush. This is the thing with doing things live on camera. What I'm trying to do here is actually show you in real time what the effects you're going to get. This brush is just depositing half its hairs everywhere. It's just a complete and utter pain. Go away. Okay, so there we go. And I'm going to remove that excess from the edge there. Oh, these bloody hairs. There we go. Right. So you can see already we've got, yeah, it looks quite nice. I think I actually need more brown. It's not brown enough, is it? I'm going to literally put some on the brush. Just pick up a tiny drop of thinner. Remember, you see, you can always come back. You can come back from too dark to light. It's very difficult to come back up. I'm just going to ignore these hairs now because I think they're doing it just to annoy me. There we go. So that's better. It's a bit darker now, isn't it? Again, wipe off the excess around the edge. There we go. Right, and I'm going to use the airbrush just to try and speed things up a bit. Get that hair out of there. You can see it's drying it out because it's going matte, so that's good. Right. So now, using our little brush, we can do individual planks. We can change the colour just by removing some paint. And then if we want to, we can come in with some of this yellow, add that to add another dimension of colour. Where did that bloody hair just come from? That must have been in a groove. Crazy. You see I've got this big finger mark on here which I put on. I'm going to have to go over that. This is all going wrong on here, isn't it? that back as well. There we go. So with our, I'll put the lid back on here because it's getting everywhere. So you can brush some of that yellow into there, brush some into there. That yellow oil paint doesn't seem to be mixing well with the thinners for some reason. Sorry about that guys, a dog was barking and Jess decided to respond. So, excuse me, as you can see here, all I'm doing, I've got thinners on the brush, odorless thinners, and I'm just basically working what's previously on there to give me lines and shapes and colour variation using different colours. Just to give some tonal differences, and as you can see, this is the finished effect. Okay, it doesn't need to be perfect. If you want to have perfect plank demarcation, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I made a video a long time ago using a piece of Titanic deck. So what I'll do is I will download that again, and I will put that on the end of this video so you can see an alternate method using masking tape, and then you can change the tonality of the wood as I've just shown you. But again, you see what we're after. I mean, you can easily have this deck tan, which is great, but look at it, it's just one colour. Yeah, it's not as effective as something like this. And then what I'm going to show you in a minute will really make this jump. I hope. Just get some colour change on that, make sure we don't have the wood grain, as it were, on this ring. I'm not sure if that would have been steel or wood. I think it's wood. I'll have to check my references. It certainly looks like wood there because it's cut in on the ends. So there we go. That, I think, is about as far as we're going to go with that. I mean, you can play with this for hours. And the beauty, as I keep saying, the beauty of this is, unlike any other process, if you decide you don't like it and you want to go back and do the airbrush method or whatever to get the definite demarcation between the planks, then you just get some of this thinners on a rag and just wipe it all off. It will all come off and leave the paint behind. Okay, so there you can see the kind of effects you could get on that deck. Now, I'm going to try something here that may or may not work, but I think it worked yesterday. I've got some industrial dirt here, industrial dirt wash, which is just a very dark grey wash. And I'm just going to put this in a few places and see if it will. We'll just do it on this half, see how it looks. I was kind of hoping it would capillary more into those planks. It's not doing so, so maybe if we thin it a bit, put some thinners on it, there we go, just to get it going. And then if we can brush it out, Can you see what's happening? The grain underneath, the wood underneath is really starting to pop. Got a hair in it there, go away. There we go. So you just come along with a cotton bud, remove the excess around the edge, and that will dry back a lot lighter than it looks now. In fact, what we'll do, the trouble is here, you see what's happening, we've got puddled areas, the airbrush is going to blow it around. I just want to basically, oh, stay on there. Just want to basically dry this back so you can see how it looks compared to the other side. And this is kind of what I'm after, is this sun bleached, scrubbed. You know, these decks were pretty much constantly scrubbed. It won't be all varnished and shiny and everything. And that's what we're after, is this sort of sun-bleached, darkened wood. But it's not just all one colour. And then what we can do is take some thinners and we can come along and go up to that edge and make that piece look completely independent from everything else, which is how it would have been. I'm thinking it's probably wood. As I say, I'll need to check my references, but as you can see, we can just move it around, and this is the beauty in using oils. Now, one thing I will say, if you use enamel paints, you cannot do this. What will happen if you're using enamel paints, as soon as you start doing this, it'll take all the paint off. So you can see now the difference you can get, the different effects by putting a wash on there or not. If we want to, we can come in here and still play with it some more. Perhaps get a lighter plank bit in there. Perhaps there as well. Down here. Just random areas, and just take oil away, add oil, change the colour, put some of the yellow back in. You know, you just keep going as long as you want. And as I say, at the end of the day, you don't like it, just take it all off. So there you are. So what I'm going to do now, what you need to do as well after this is seal it. Spray an acrylic varnish over it, gloss, matte, clear, whatever, just to seal it, and then you'll be able to mask it. And but I would leave it a good 24 hours before you start sealing it. You don't want to seal the oils in, you want them to dry out, and then you'll be able to mask it and do the rest of it. I would use very low tap masking tape and don't leave it on there too long. At the end of the day, if it does lift any of it, you just come back in and replace it. You don't, you know, that's the beauty of it. It's not like painting a car body. There's no sort of science to it. There's no specified accuracy. There's no specified colour. There's no specified shape. Nothing. You can do it pink and blue as painted gloss if you want. So there we are. Right, so what I'm going to do now is put that other video up where I showed you how to do a deck with spray painting and masking. So thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. As I say, it's been a bit sort of off the cuff rather than all sort of pre-prepared and everything, which was the intention. It hasn't gone as well as I wanted it to, but I hope you get the idea. Any questions, stick them down below and I'll get back to you. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Hiya guys, Nigel here with you, Nigel's Modelling Bench. And you're probably looking here on my bench and thinking, why have I got a man's name and the model ship part hash written on my bench? This video is for Ron Culverley. Go look him up. He's got his own channel. He's got more than twice as many subs as me, and he has a video series called The Model Ship, and he's done a few other sort of crafty things as well. He's got a massive workshop under his house. Go take a look. There's a lot of stuff worth seeing. He's a Canadian guy. Well, he lives in Canada, and he's currently building the Trumpeter 1/200th HMS Hood, and he has just finished building the Trumpeter 1/200th Bismarck. So, and then he's got the next one is the Rodney in 200 scale. So he's at the point now where he wants to paint the deck on his hood. So what he's done, he's asked the question, what colour do I paint the deck? Should I go for the old deck tan XF55 or the new deck tan XF78? And as you can see, there's a vast difference. So everybody's replied basically use 78, it's a much better colour. I actually think 55 would be a better colour to make the deck washed out and then give it a wash to highlight the detail. But I would like to add a third colour into the mix, and that is desert yellow. Now it's too bright, okay, but used in moderation it can really add some effects. So what I want to show here, this is basically, it's not so much a tutorial because I'm sure you all know how to do it, but basically what I've said to Ron is, why don't you do the system I would use on a plastic deck? And I've done it before on model ships many moons ago. And basically this is the aft well deck from the Trumpeter 200 Titanic, and you can see the only part on it that's planked is the bit that's visible. Everywhere else here there's superstructure. So basically you've got this area here, and I'm going to do this effect on this little area just to show you how it's done. Now it takes a little while, but I don't think Ron's going to mind that, because if you see his Bismarck and watch the last few parts of that doing the rigging, it's quite incredible. So go take a look at his website. That's it there, Ron Culverley, The Model Ship, and it's just, he's on like part 550 now I think or something. And he hasn't started the number rolling again for the hood, so you'll have to go back and find the first parts of the hood and the last parts of the Bismarck. So like I say, I want to add 3 colours. Now for this, what I'm going to do is basically spray a base colour, then I'm going to mask off some planks, and then I'm going to spray another colour, then I'm going to mask off some more planks and spray a third colour, and I might even then take all the tape off and give it a fogging over with the lighter colour just to tone things down if it looks a bit bright, and then after that I'll give it a wash. So I want to show you basically how we do this. Now today again in England it's really hot and muggy, and we're not geared up for it, so the house is really too hot for doing any proper painting or anything. So if this goes a bit wrong, that's why. When you paint when it's too hot, the paint just dries too fast. So if it does go a bit wrong, hey ho, it's just basically showing you the concept. And I'm going to be putting a wooden deck on this anyway. I've got the Pontos set for it, so I'm not really worried if I mess this up. So basically what you're going to need, the first thing you need to do this is some masking tape. Okay, now this is Mr. Hobby masking tape in a Tamiya holder. If this doesn't work, I've got some masking tape in there from Tamiya, but this stuff seems thinner, so I thought this might be better to use. So that's the Mr. Hobby 10mm wide masking tape. You could use 6mm, whatever. You need a brand new blade. Don't try cutting masking tape with an old blunt blade. You'll get a really rough edge, and it might even pull the tape from underneath the rule. I'm not going to use a rule. I'm going to use this brilliant little thing here. This is an Infini cutting mat. Basically this is an acrylic sheet with grooves in it, so that what you can do is actually place your knife in a groove, and then you can follow the groove down and cut through and through the tape. So I'll show you how that works in a minute. The first thing we're going to do, and obviously we need an airbrush as well, and we need some paint and some thinners, and I think we'll just use Tamiya thinners because I know that's what Ron likes to use. So the first thing I'm going to do is use the colour that I want the least of. Now you would normally start with the lightest colour and work up, but the thing is we want these 2 colours to be a lot more prominent than this one, and we want this one to be a lot more prominent than this one. Okay, so I know this is going to be Ron's preferred choice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray this one first, and then what I'll do is I'll mask, okay, and then we'll spray over with this one, and then I'll mask again, and then we'll spray over with this one, and that will give us mainly this, because the last colour you use will be the most you see, obviously unless you mask off loads of planks and just leave a couple showing. But the idea of this is just to add a little bit of variation, so you haven't got this slab of plank moulded plastic, you actually get a little bit of variation. So first thing I'm going to do, you don't need to see this, I'm going to airbrush XF59 Desert Yellow onto this, and then I'll come back. Okay, so there we go, that's that painted with the Desert Yellow XF59. Don't have to use that, use something a bit darker if you want. This is just purely to show you an effect. So you can see I've missed a bit there, I went a bit thin, but I've probably got a little drop in the airbrush I can use just to get in there. There we go. So and you can also see I've put it on very, very thin. You can almost see through it. And the whole idea of that is to get a variation. If you look at a plank of wood, unless it's a very expensive piece of mahogany or something, it's never just one colour. It's always a variation and stuff. So we want this to be a little bit kind of uneven and blotchy. It's all about what is it? I can't really call it now. An artist license, or whatever you call it. And basically, it's really hard to remember phrases and stuff when you're talking to everyone and trying to remember what you're going to say next. So yeah, that's the first colour on. So what I've got to do now is mask off some of these planks. Now if you look at this, I'll get you close up, you can see that all the plank lengths, although I think it's inaccurate, are all even. And on this model they're all 55mm, okay? Unless they come up to an end, and then they're not obviously 55mm, but where there's a join and you come along to the next place and there's a join, it's 55mm. So I've measured the width. They're approximately 0.7, so I'm going to use 0.6 on the cutting mat because it cuts slightly wide. And basically what I'm going to do now is make up some strips to mask off this deck. So this Infini cutting mat you don't have to have, you can just get masking tape, put some down on your bench, cut it into strips. But this does make life a lot easier, and it also guarantees you nice straight lengths. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the 0.6 as I say, and I'm going to come along and I'm just going to lay this masking tape down on there, push it down like that. Push it down on there, it saves it sort of picking up as you drag the knife through. And I'm going to come along to the first incomplete edge. I'm just going to run down. There we go. I'm going to go to the next one because no, I'm not far enough. Let's go to this one, and then I'm going to pick this one off because that one isn't parallel, because the edge isn't dead parallel. So as always, trying to get this masking tape off your fingers is a nightmare. And then I'll do the same on the other edge. So I'll come along to here and then just run down. Right, so as I said, we know they're 55mm long, so what I can do is come along here and go across, and I can remove that piece there, and then we've got, I know down to here is 50 and I've come 5 short, but we'll go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55. So I can come across here, and now I've got lengths of tape, which these are all 55, and then these are shorter. So if I'm going to do a complete length along here, I'll use this. If it's not a complete length, I'll use the shorter pieces. So I can come in here now with my knife, pick up the groove, come down and just cut strips of tape which are going to be the correct width. I missed the groove there. Okay, as you can see, and so on. So I'm going to cut this piece. I won't. I was going to cut it in half, but I won't. So come on here, and I've got some tweezers. Now these are special tweezers. You don't need to have these, but they are really good. They're non-adhesive tweezers. They have a coating on them, so the tape doesn't stick to them, which is really, really weird, but it works. It's a bit gimmicky, but it works. So what I can do now is just come along here. I'll see I'm going to mask off from this plank here. I can just put the tape down. There we go, you can see that's taped down there now, and that's masked basically from the end of the plank off the end there. So I'm just going to go on and do some more now randomly across the deck, and then I'll come back. Okay, so there we go. I have to use my magnifier to do this because my eyes are shot because I'm old. and fat and ugly. But anyway, never mind. So here we go, we've got tape on here, and as you can see, it's not a lot coverage, and that's all we're going to see of this colour coming through, because the other two colours are going to go over this. So that's all you're going to see is that there. So it's just an odd spattering of this darker colour, and that's why, for those of you that started off saying, oh my god, you can't use that, it's way too yellow. Well, hang on and watch to the end. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to now spray it with this colour, because this is going to be, sorry, this colour, the XF55, and then what we're going to do is mask off some more, so we'll have the dark against the light, and then we'll mask off some more, and then we'll paint on the XF78, and then maybe we'll give out fog afterwards. So I'm going to paint it now with the XF55, so I'll see you in a minute. There we go. So we've done the XF55 now. There's the deck tan. You can see we've got the masking on there. You can see that a couple of them, like that one there, isn't perfectly straight, but I'm not going to worry about that. You'll see when the end effect comes, you'll see that it doesn't really matter if it's not perfect. So just going to give that a few minutes just to dry off, and then we'll put some more masking tape on there in some random areas, and then we'll paint the XF78. And there we go, back again, and we've got more tape on us. So you can see we've got the old tape with the XF55, and then we've got the new tape. So now we're going to spray over with the XF68, which is Ron's favourite colour, I believe. So that will be the main colour, and then when we take all the masking tape off, we'll have these other shades showing through. So I'm going to go and spray this on now. I'm going to thin it about 50-50 with the Tamiya X20A thinners, and spray it all over. Again, I should be a little bit blotchy, and then what we'll see is a little bit of blotchiness showing through. And you know, if you want to have more of this colour showing through, you just put more tape on. You can actually go for wider strips or whatever. I have noticed that HMS Hood, I've got the kit, the 200 scale kit, the planks are about 0.9 wide, so it's not so much as this. You don't have to do as much work. I didn't measure the length, but as I said, on this one you've got a constant 55mm length on the length of the planks. I'm not sure about the accuracy, but and then you've got the random lengths where it sort of finishes off underneath walls and stuff. So I'm going to go and put some more paint on this now, and then we'll see what it looks like. Alright, so there we go, that's all painted now, and you can see on here, you can see we've got the brown on there, and we've got all the masking tape to come off. So let's get some of this masking tape off now. I'm going to use these tweezers because they're fairly blunt and they won't scratch the paint so easily. So we can just pick off the masking tape like so, and we can see the different colours coming through. Now I'm going to leave this to dry a bit longer before I do much more. So I'll come back in a minute, and it'll be a minute for you, it'll be half an hour for me, because as you can see the paint is still soft. But we can see now that you see there's the XF55 under there, and there's the XF49 under there. So you can see now we're getting this sort of difference in colour, and as you can see it's very, very defined, and these little bits of masking tape are right paint. Just roll them in your fingers and they will just come off like so. But you can see that it's very, very defined. Now I'm going to come in now with a knife and just pick up these corners and then pull away the tape, and then the same here. I'm just gently picking up the edges and trying not to damage the paint. If you do damage the paint, it's not the end of the world, because you know the whole reason for doing all this is getting some colour variation, and damaging the paint will give you colour variation. That XF55 doesn't appear to be far off the colour of the, it almost looks like it's pulling the paint off, but it's actually not. That deck tan isn't far off the colour of the actual grey plastic itself. So I think it's kind of trying to, the deck tan, I think it's trying to depict a sort of sun bleached, matted out, washed out, uncared for deck. Whereas we know that most decks on most ships particularly. I mean, this is Titanic, so you know, it was never really weathered, it never got the chance to get weathered. But we know that you know, some of the warships during peacetime or during, you know, downtime, the sailors were constantly scrubbing the decks and keeping them clean. So I'm going to go on and get the rest of this tape off rather than have you bored to tears watching me do all of it, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do next. Okay, so all the tape's off, and as we can see, it's a little bit too much of a difference. The XF49 I've used is probably a little too dark. The XF55 is a little bit grey, isn't it? It almost looks like a primer grey when you see it here. So what we want to do is sort of make all this come out, and we want to sort of tone down this brown colour, but also I want to make it a bit brighter. Now we have to forget for a minute this is Titanic, just for a second, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do two halves. If this was Titanic, I think I'd be wanting to just take away the sharpness of that brown by going over with a very heavily thinned coat of the XF78 and sort of giving it a bit more brownness, and then go over with a heavily thinned coat of clear yellow. Now don't cringe, it will give it a very, very kind of polished wood look. Okay, now we'll see how it comes out and you can see what you think. If it was something like HMS Hood that Ron's doing, that wants to be depicted as, you know, it's a bit battle war and it's, you know, they haven't scrubbed the decks, the sun's been beating down on it, you could kind of you know, perhaps go over the XF78 or maybe even a very, very heavily thin mix of something like XF19 and just take it back and take the wood colour away and make it look a bit bleached and stuff. You can also use oils and do stuff, but we'll do that afterwards. Or you could go in with like a smoke X19, heavily thinned, and give that a light coat. So I think what I'll do is I'll have an imaginary line down the middle. I think what I'll do is I'll go over now with the XF78 and then I'll go over with the XF19 on this side, and we'll see the difference and see what it looks like. And this is going to be very heavily thin. It's going to be like 80% thinners or 70% thinners, 30% paint. So I'll go away and do that. I don't do airbrushing on camera because I don't. And then what I'll do is I'll come back and I'll show you what it looks like. So we'll do this side, well, whatever side comes out in what. Okay, so we can see now what's happened. This side has got the XF78 and this side is the XF19, which is the XF19 is the sky grey, XF78 is the wooden deck tan. And basically you can see what's happened is this has brought the XF55 out, the deck tan, okay, and this side has kind of toned down the darker wood, it's toned down everything, but it's brought out the XF78, so you can see this difference now in shade. Now, as I say, this is a test, this is a trial, this is just to show you an effect you can get. If I was doing this for real, I would be using a lot more tape and have a lot less of the XF78. But what we can do now is we can make this kind of look bright and we can make this look a bit darker. What I'm going to do is a heavily thinned mix of the clear yellow on here and a heavily thinned mix of the X19 smoke on here. Right, so there we go. That's had the heavily thinned smoke, the X19, and this has had the heavily thinned clear yellow X24. And it doesn't look right on camera. It looks a lot better in the flesh than it does on the camera, because here it's looking like the X55 is really coming through, and in reality it's not. Maybe if I put it like this you get a better idea of how it looks, but then the darker brown comes up. I think really the secret to this is to not use such a dark brown, but in fact to my eye now this looks really, really good, but on the camera it's just picking up, it's just really, really accentuating the dark and the light. So you can also see it's got a little bit of a gloss to it now as well, because the these two paints here are gloss. So I think the next thing to do now is give it an oil wash and just sort of break it down a bit. So let me see what I'm going to use and we'll go from there. Right, here I've got this is just ordinary Reeves oil colour, burnt umber, probably 25 years old, and some low odour thinners, odorless thinners. I use odorless, it doesn't attack the plastic, and I've basically mixed it up here on an upturned Mr. Hobby jar. Now a lot of people use Tamiya jars, but the beauty of the Mr. Hobby jars, as you can see, they've got like a curve, like they're convex, so it's really good for mixing paint and stuff on, and I often use the Mr. Hobby ones. So just going to dab the brush on a paper towel. I think that's off the camera, you can't see it, so let's just dab the brush on a paper towel so you can see that it's not too bad, and then we can just brush this on. And what this will do is it's working better than the filter, because the filter was there was just nothing to it. So we can just brush this on, and again we can level, change the amount we put on for the effect we want. So you can see I could just go really heavy, you get quite a heavy loading. You can see it all running down there. You can just brush it on, and what it will do, you won't see it straight away, but what it will do, it will settle down into all the little nooks and crannies between the planks, and it will also bring everything down. Because it's brown, it's acting like a filter, it's toning it all down. And as you can probably tell by the way this video is going, this is all kind of, let's give this a go and see how it works. This isn't all pre-tested, and I mean the masking method is pre-tested. And as I say, if I was going for this properly, I would probably have used more masking and got more colour variation, and I may not have used that XF59, but this video will be good reference for me in the future. So yeah, if you were doing this, I would perhaps use, I don't know, maybe something like XF15, or just sort of use some of that and lighten it down, or you know, use the XF78 with a bit of white in it and use the XF78 on its own initially. But now we can really see, as this starts to dry, let's get all that out of the way, we can really see what that was doing, and it's giving us, again, under the camera it doesn't look any good at all. You try this at home and you'll see what I mean. The camera is really picking up. Maybe if I dim the light slightly, that's a little bit better. The camera's picking up on the darks and the lights. If I do that, it makes it even worse. But you can see that we've now got all the plank definition there, and instead of looking like a piece of plastic, it actually looks like, you know, a bit more like wood. So that is XF59, XF55, XF78, X24 and an oil wash. That is XF59, XF55, XF78, XF19, and then X20, X19, which is the smoke. So that hasn't seen any of the clear yellow, and that hasn't seen any of the greys. So there we go. Oh, and I went over with the XF78, didn't I? Thinned before I put the X24 on. So there you go, guys. That's one for Ron, and it's just to show you how easy it is to get this kind of variation effect on the deck rather than have it all just one colour. And again, you can go with a darker oil if you want to and make it really pop out. And on the hood it's going to be a lot easier because the planks are wider and longer. I think they're longer, so less number of planks to mask, if you like. You can see that's pretty much dry already. Just rub my finger over there now. And the beauty with using oil washes is if you don't like it, you can just go over with some odourless thinners and take it off. I mean, I can take a cotton bud here, I've got one here, and just go over the surface and just remove as much as I want. I've got to be careful because the paint it's almost real time you're watching this in. So be careful because it'll start to lift the paint, even though enamels won't normally affect acrylics. If you do it too quick, then it will. Jess has heard something outside. And there we go. So give it a go, Ron. It's not too difficult, and I know you can do it. There's no skill in it. It just takes longer than just painting it brown. I mean, even if you don't do the plank work and just put the wash on afterwards, just brown oil paint and the odourless thinners. There you go. You don't have to use this make. Just use any low odour or odourless thinners that you can get, or just buy a pre-made brown wash. So there you go. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.